Get it back. All right, we're back. Sorry about that little technical glitch there. So we've got this plant out of the pot. You can see it's very root bound. Not a lot of soil left in here. But we have two actually distinct plants. So I want to try to take these apart and make two separate pots with these. So we're going to put the knife into the soil ball and just start teasing out these roots. The roots are actually in pretty good shape. They seem pretty healthy. So we'll see if we can do this in a pretty timely fashion here. It's not bad. It's a bit dry, but that's okay. We can sort that out. Doesn't seem to be any critters or anything in the soil, which is nice. But you can see we've got some big roots here that are circling the pot. So we want to loosen those up. Try and get rid of all sort of as much of that old excess soil as possible. You don't worry if you're losing roots and things, because they're all going to regrow. So I think we can probably do this. There's a couple of big roots in here that we're just going to have to tease out from each other. Oh, there we go. Easier than I thought it was going to be. So there we go. Now we've got two separate plants. This one's got two stems and a decent root system on it. Doesn't look bad at all. Not a lot of dead roots or rotten roots on there. So we can transplant that as one. And then we got this nice single stem that is the same. So we got nice roots here. Nothing much dead, no rotted bits or anything, so it's quite healthy. So we're going to go back into the same size pot because we've reduced the root ball size, so we can probably transplant right back into the same pot, at least for this winter. Yeah, I think we can do that. I'm going to reduce this big root here because we really don't need that. So I'm going to give it a little root prune. We don't need that big honking root there. It'll grow more of those. That'll make it a little easier to put it in the pot. So for our soil mix, we generally don't get too fussy with most plants. We use the same mix we use for everything. We use a Berger or a Promix type soilless mix. So we're going to put some into the bottom of the pot here. Into the bottom of the pot. It's moistened already. Very important to have your soil mix moistened before you transplant, because they're very hard to wet later. So the roots are all nice and ready to go, good and healthy. So they'll go in about halfway down now. So there's going to be lots of soil space for this guy to put on new growth. We'll just get some more soil out of the bin here. Now, what's important about this stage is that you've got to get your soil mix or your potting mix really worked down into the roots. So you really want to get in there, firm it down. Make sure you have no air pockets. You can use a little bit more soil. A good shake. That really helps settle the soil in. And there we go. We're ready to go with a nice individual specimen. The beauty about reducing the roots, putting it into a same size pot, is you're not continually having to put them into bigger pots. There's really no reason why you couldn't keep them in a same size pot for a number of years by doing some root pruning and adding fresh soil into your pot when you're transplanting, rather than just putting a bigger and bigger pot of soil in together. So very easy. So there we go. This is starting to branch now. It's going to be a nice specimen and be great in the potscape next year. Actually looks like it could go right in there with the color pattern. Can you see that one? Looks like it'll go right in there with the color palette. So these cheffleurs may make it up into the big show next year. So we'll see. All right, all this soil mix, which is mostly composted bark, things like that. When stuff comes up from Florida, it's often in a very sandy mix with lots of crushed shells and things in it too, because that's what they have there to use as potting soils. That can all just go right into the garden or right into your composter. Now we're going to do one other thing today, because hey, it's still tomato season. We've had no frost. Our tomatoes are finishing up, but still producing. And I thought, you know what, why not? We need to save some seed from some of our favorite varieties. So we've got a variety today. We're going to save some seed. This is Evil Olive. Evil Olive is a good sized cherry tomato. You can see it there. Very, very dark olive green with some red blushing. When you open it up, it's got amazing colors inside. It's a really cool looking tomato and actually a really flavorful tomato. So what we're going to do is we're going to save the seeds, and we're going to save the seeds by the fermentation method. So there's a few ways you can do tomato seeds. You can just do them on paper towel and that, but it makes the seed hard to work with. Fermentation takes the seed and it takes all that gel around the seed and gets that off. It's the way commercial seed producers deal with their tomato seed. Also, the fermentation process takes away germination inhibitors that are in the gel. There's chemicals in there that stop germination until a certain point. So by doing the fermentation, we get rid of those. Then we can dry the seed and sow it next year, no problem. So we're going to take about a half a cup of water here, maybe a cup of water, and we're going to take that gel with the seeds in it out. Then we're going to just scoop it all out of there as much as we can. Evil Olive doesn't give lots of seed most of the time. But we're going to scoop it out. Think about how much seed you need too. You know, you don't need hundreds of seeds of any variety. So we'll scoop that seed out. There we go. Now the beauty of doing this is you can then just go ahead and eat the tomato. You don't waste it. I just put it in the dirt, so I'm not going to eat it now. But then you can see that everything is sunk here. And we've got this little mix of tomato goo and seeds. And at this point now, all we do is nothing. Over the next few days, what's going to happen is that the gel is going to separate from the seed. It's going to float to the surface. The good seeds are going to sink to the bottom. You're going to get a layer of gross, sort of frothy mold on top, but that's okay. All the good seeds going to sink. And then in about a week, maybe a little earlier, depends, we can skim off the slime off the top, pour out the water, pour the seed onto paper towels, dry the seed really well, and then package the seed up and save it until when we need to sow it next time. But it's kind of a gross way to do it, but it's really effective, and it really helps you get a lot of good germination from your tomato seeds for next year. Now, you can do this with any tomato seed. What you need to remember, though, is that if you're growing heirlooms or open pollinated seed or tomatoes, you can save the seed. Even if you have tomatoes growing close together, your chances are of getting pure seed from that variety are very, very high. Tomatoes are a very complex pollinator plant, so they do self-pollinate quite readily and don't cross-pollinate easily. So usually saving the seed from a tomato variety, you will get the same variety. Thank you, Laura. If you grew hybrid tomato seed, so if you bought tomato seed and it said whatever variety F1, you cannot save the seed from that. Well, you can, but you will not get the same variety. Hybrid seed is two varieties crossed together to give a specific variety. And the seedlings from that will not be the same. They might be better, they might be worse, but they won't be the same. But if you use open pollinated varieties or heirloom varieties, you're about 99% assured of getting the same tomato next year. A bee could cross-pollinate. There's a potential for that, but it's pretty small actually, because they do self-pollinate quite readily. So we'll watch that. We'll let that thing ferment and get all moldy and gross, and then we'll get ourselves some good evil olive tomato seed for next year. Have any questions, Laura, today?
Just one.
Sure.
Is that behind you a begonia red Fred?
Is that a red Fred? Yes, this is a red Fred begonia. There's actually two of them here. They're just babies. Red Fred is a huge variety. This is actually a full-size leaf on a red Fred here. It's an old leaf. Normally they're in this color. Big glossy red. Just quite an outstanding plant. If you grow out a big one, you could get a red Fred that would fill this table. These ones are ones we've had around. We'll take some leaf cuttings off them and that for next year. But that's red Fred. It's one of my favorite of the big rhizomatous begonias. Really easy to grow and massive, huge leaves. Wonderful plant. All right, any other questions today, Laura?
That seems to be it.
All right, we're going to wrap it up for today. It's getting hot out here. I can't believe it. I'm starting to sweat out on the patio in October, a little crazy. As I leave and say goodbye till next week, I'll let Laura take a little scan of our big containers. They look great right now. They're going to look great for a few more days. We'll probably take them apart on the Thanksgiving weekend this year and get ready for our winter containers. So have a quick look. We'll see you next week on Let's Get Growing Facebook Live.